Hey guys, Bugcat7 here. Okay, it is Thursday, February 18th, 2021, and I'd like to thank you for visiting the Stonewall Research channel here on YouTube. I really do appreciate it. All right, guys, well, I like to do these sort of special videos in between doing my series on the quote unquote giants or large hominids, as I like to call them. International, which is actually part two of my series on the accounts of the giants. And we'll get back to that next week as promised. So I'd like to cover this article from Ancient Origins. And, I'm sure many of the subscribers have heard of this particular site here and this sort of online magazine here that deals with this subject matter, but I've covered several articles from it, and I like it, and I think it's pretty good. There's a few people who contribute that I think are very good journalists, but there's a couple I don't like, and this is from one of those. This is this Ashley Cowie, which I've criticized. Her articles sound rather sophomoric, by journalistic standards. So, this is another one by her, but, you just make of it what you would like to make of it. But it's interesting what they say here at the end. They miss something very important about why something like this might happen. And it's about this controversy here. It says updated 9th of February 2021. So it's pretty recent here. And let's take a look at this thing. And, right off the bat, they miss the whole point. And, one of the reasons I want to cover this too is because it's related to much of the material that's on my channel here, sort of debunking mainstream, on their own grounds, and more or less, fair criticisms of whatever it is they're trying to put forth and have taught in school and taught. So look, this Ashley Cowie, to me, strikes me as an apologist for mainstream, and this is like just over the top because it's fair criticism, and not only that, what is not being clearly understood here by these people is really just in their face, and I'm not going to hesitate to point that out. But in any case, let's take a look at this crummy article by Ashley Cowie. And as I said, I've criticized a number of articles that she did for Ancient Origins here. And this one deserves no less scrutiny. An archaeologist from the Royal British Columbia Museum in Canada is being attacked online for, quote unquote, speculating that a curious carved stone figure found on a Western Canadian beach in British Columbia was a Lekwungen people artifact. While the artifact, quote unquote, might be modern, when you know the facts, perhaps you, like me, will want to jump into the strap and cover the controversial Mr. Keddy's back. He deserves the support of all of us history lovers out there. And, this Ashley Cowie is just, it strikes me as this sort of cheerleader, apologist for mainstream, nonsense. And she'll tolerate anything. She's no questions for her. Just whatever they say goes. And we'll follow the thread here with me, though, as we go along with this, because I have to point out a few things about my own channel and what I cover on my channel. Because based on their own logic here is what we should be forgiving them for is actually what we should be holding them accountable for. So, okay, so this stone carving here, as you see, and again, this is, quoting, the article, mistaken possibly for a modern sculpture by some, anthropologist, discovered by somebody and then examined by the British Museum there. The stone carving was discovered by Bernhard Spaltholz while walking on a beach in British Columbia, Canada. Canadian artwork has since sparked controversy due to its possible misidentification by an archaeologist at the Royal British Columbia Museum. Okay. Misinterpretation of the Canadian artwork. Weighing around 100 kilograms, 220 pounds, the stone face discovered on a Canadian beach has bulging eyes and a twisted nose and lips. It was discovered by local man Bernard Spaltholz early one morning last summer on a British Columbia beach. The artifact finder notified an archaeologist at the museum in Victoria. Jack Lohman, head of the Royal British Columbia Museum, said in a blog post at the time that he was, quote unquote, astounded and that the discovery was a, quote, a remarkable find with a remarkable story, unquote. In January last year, museum archaeologist Grant Keddy announced that the stone figure was, quote unquote, most likely a ceremonial pillar carved by the Lekwungen people who have long lived in the area. However, a recent article in The Guardian says that a Canadian artist, Ray Boudreau, who lives nearby the beach, told a local paper that he, that quote, he had carved the figure no more than 3 years ago, unquote. So there it is laying on the beach, I guess, there. Is it a modern day work of art or an ancient indigenous carving, unquote? The mistake in identifying the Canadian artwork. Last week, sculptor Ray Boudreau told a Times columnist that it's, quote, it's absolutely 110% my carving, unquote. And supporting his claim, he provided photos of a sculpture he executed in 2017, which the Times columnist writer called, quote, a strikingly similar sculpture, unquote. Boudreau said he used a simple hammer and chisel to shape the distinctive face before the stone vanished from the beach. What happened next is the controversial bit. After Boudreau's comments became public, according to The Guardian, quote, the museum quietly deleted the blog post and any other references to the discovery, unquote. This, quote unquote, apparently sly act sparked a fierce debate over the museum's methods of identifying the initial findings. Now, their entire approach to such discoveries is being brought into question. Okay, so left photograph by Bernhard Spaltholz of the Beach Canadian artwork. Right photo by Victoria artist Ray Boudreau of a rocky car back in 2017, which he believed had been stolen. Okay. There's a lot of similarities there. Looks to me like it's the same thing. Reaction from the Royal British Columbia Museum. It takes a brave and selfless person to stand up and speak out in support of someone when they come under public attack. Here's the apology by Ashley Cowie for them all. The champion of the story is Lou Ann Neal, head of the Royal British Columbia Museum's Indigenous Curation and Repatriation Department, who says perhaps, quote, the public has been too quick to pass judgment, unquote. Neal said there are a lot of questions she'd like to ask the artifact finder. For example, it is yet unclear if Mr. Boudreau started working on a stone that, quote, already had a carving on it, unquote. Furthermore, Neal points out that the shape of the carved face is, quote, wide on one end and tapering at the other, unquote. As an indigenous artist herself, she is perfectly qualified to point out that it is similar to other indigenous stone figures discovered in the region, which it certainly is. But what does that mean? But anyway, don't shoot the archaeologists. Here's the coup de grace here on the apologies here. I'm sorry, but this is what you can't get away with, unfortunately, because of many different reasons, but we'll discuss that in a moment. Let's now personify the museum archaeologist Grant Keddy, who last year, quote unquote, speculated that the stone pillar discovered in Canada, quote unquote, might be the same one indigenous elders talked about in the 1880s, and that it was, quote unquote, probably used in Wongan salmon and puberty ceremonies. Note the words speculated, quote unquote, might, quote unquote, and probably, quote unquote. Okay, so here's the reasoning behind why we should forgive this person, because see, we just don't understand what's going on here. Okay, and this is what archaeologists are paid to do. They're highly paid specialists. They speculate on many different things, so they give these speculative, reasons why these things are this or that or the other thing. So it's just a matter of pure speculation on their behalf that, we have to accept based on their learned, education, if that's what you want to call it. And this is multidisciplinary, a lot of these studies, and they have to be concurred and confirmed by all these different other disciplines that are related, like geology and other things, and anthropologists, etc. So, skeptical and many deeply cynical, locals are marching on social media, shunning Keddy for his initial findings. However, the fight just got bigger because Keddy just found a new ally, good old me, and hopefully us. Why should we rally around Mr. Keddy? Because has over 50 years experience in archaeological curator at the Royal British Columbia Museum, and he himself is a museum of knowledge pertaining to the natural and social history of the indigenous First Nations cultures in Canada. Okay, even more reason why, you have to take the heat when you speculate on something and you're wrong. Okay, so, we have to have basically faith in this person's knowledge in these subject matter, because we can't study it ourselves. Okay, but it doesn't mean that somebody who can become is equally um, versed in knowledge of these subject matters that they can do on their own and reach a level of competence just as equal to somebody who goes to university is certainly possible. But you have to accept otherwise based on some piece of paper. Right now, a faction of armchair archaeologists is stretching their fingers, getting ready to annihilate me, and perhaps Mr. Keddy again, too. But think about this for a second. At the best, maybe Mr. Keddy realized his earlier speculation was inaccurate and didn't want to mislead the public further, so he simply deleted the post. At worst, he tried to cover his ass and protect his professional integrity. Wouldn't you do the same? Okay, yes and no, but you don't understand what the problem is, okay? And that is that there is this third party of people, which I often talk about in my own videos, okay? And this third party of people, the people who were taught these things, which are in actuality theories or hypothesis, And it wasn't made clear to them the language used, etc., to create these hypotheses and theories, and they're taught as facts. Okay, unless you go on to higher learning when you're going to learn that they're theories. But being that they're theories, that means they're open to speculation, again, by anybody who's equally as competent as any of these people through study or self-study, whatever it might be. People who focus on these things and make it a specialty of theirs, okay, by reading and doing everything and anything that these people could do short of actually going to a site and digging it up. Okay, when you have certain types of data available to you, that should be equal and available to scientists everywhere. In January last year, museum archaeologist Grant Kinney announced that the stone figure was most likely a ceremonial pillar carved by the Lukwogan people. Okay, so most likely is part of this language that is used, and she was in quotes there. Okay, this is what's not taught in school. Okay, this language that is used by the archaeologists, or just is supposed to accept their speculation, no matter what it is, even if it could be wrong. So, obviously they have to modify based on new data often the things that they discuss. Like in another article, was talking about how this whole out of Africa theory is going in the dustbin because now they believe that no particular place can be traced back. Human ancestry can't be traced back to any one particular place, like Africa, for instance. So the whole out of Africa theory is out the window. Okay, but listen to this guy here, okay? You heard what was just said about these sort of catchwords that they used that were supposed to give them a free pass for, despite the fact they're supposed to be experts in their fields and could make these mistakes. And how many mistakes have they made? And it's possible, a lot, okay? And in this video here, okay, this is I cover on my channel here. This is a video from 2018 that I do about this pamphlet from New York State from William A. Ritchie. This is a pamphlet you can go to any library in New York State and pick up. This is based on the Archaeology by William A. Ritchie, which was just accepted and is available as research done in the past and accepted today. There's nothing that has changed any thoughts on any of these things that Ritchie discovered. Okay, and the problem is with these third-party people, the people who have sort of been internalized that these theories are in their minds facts when they're theories. Okay, these people who are delusional, all right, they don't get it. They don't hear those words. They weren't used when they were taught these things, and therefore, they accept all these things as fact. And in reality, they aren't fact, and they're open to speculation. So I go through this when I go through this pamphlet by Ritchie here because often you're challenged by people and say, well, look, if there's such things as giants like Dr. Ken Fader from University of Connecticut, Connecticut U, all right, the anthropologist there has written books on hoaxes and other things and everything. He thinks he's pretty slick. I challenged him on Coast to Coast and made him feel like a fool, okay, because of this speculation. This is what's not being, and even by them, they're absolutely, mainstream, will absolutely, act like one of these third party people who accepted these things as fact when, they aren't facts. And, whatever information that is available to us, we can draw our own conclusions about it. So listen to what I say about it in this video here, oversized artifacts found. You see, this is the problem, is that oversized artifacts are found, but no skeletal remains to go along with the oversized artifacts. All right, but the oversized artifacts are found repeatedly, but no skeletal remains. So we're asked to prove the existence of giants, right? But no skeletal remains from these time periods could be found anywhere from these time periods. So who's to say how big these people were? They can't prove it either way by their own admission. So they simply say these oversized artifacts would seem to be uniform in size, unfortunately. All right. So it seems to be some uniformity of these people who speculate that in the afterlife they're going to be such and such a size, which seems ridiculous to me. Okay. Why not all these other sizes if you're making them big? Just make them any size, huge, just incredible size. But they're only slightly bigger. It would be for people who we would consider the giants. Okay, so listen to this. Let me just run through it real quick. So let's take a look at some of the language in here to see if they're so positive about what they found in the archaeology. I'm just going to run through it real quick. Okay, so let's see. Let's see what it says. On the first page here, it says might be. Okay, this is the kind of language that's used in here. Hey, you ant, get off of there. All right, we got might be on the first page. Might be. I like that. That sounds very positive to me. Okay, what else do we have here? Probably. Okay, probably. That's a good one. Probably. Let's see. Keep on going here. Okay, probable, probably. Okay, we got some radiocarbon dating in there, which, has an error, quotient of so much, I don't trust radiocarbon dating at all. Must have, they seem, okay, they seem and they must have, they seem to have been. We may suppose. They suggest things. They hint at things. This seems to show. Okay? This is how positive they are here about what they're finding, how definite they are, how much of it is fact. Okay? Suggests, may also. Okay? It may. It's very suggestive. Apparently. Probably. Possibly. Okay, possibly. We may deduce. We might deduce something, I guess. We can form some notions. I'm going to go over some of the phrases they use in here, too. Assumed. That's a good one, assumed. That sounds pretty definite, right? As suggested, perhaps. That sounds definite, right? Probably. Okay, more radiocarbon dating here. Baloney dating. As inferred. So we can infer stuff. And possibly, very likely. It's likely. Okay? They seem to have. They seem to. That's interesting. This appears to have been. May also have. That sounds definite. So-called. Probably. Seem to have. Appear to have. That sounds like definite language to me. Hey, you cricket. All right, so you get the picture here. All right. I've already discussed this on my channel. This is the language used by anthropologists and archaeologists. This is William A. Ritchie. This is what's available at the official pamphlet of New York State Archaeology that you can go to any library and look at. Okay, so for all the people who demand proof, like Dr. Ken Fader, who says, produce a giant skeleton. Well, you produce a skeleton from the time period that all these large artifacts were found. And you can't. So it's disingenuous of them to insist upon us providing proof when they don't have to provide any proof at all. It'll all be based on hypothesis and theory, which you can see. I just went over in this official pamphlet from New York State. All right? There's nothing definite about it. All right? It's pure theory and speculation. Based on what? Anybody's imagination. All right? Supposedly they study these things for years, etc. So they can make up any story. What if they were wrong in their premise to begin with? All right? Which is often the case with the giants. Okay? I go through many of these things on my channel. For instance, the Cardiff Giant, the real story. What is the real story of the Cardiff Giant? Well, that starts the whole psyop on the Giants. Okay? The phony baloney story about this whole religious context and everything, the challenge of the religious people against, the giant believers against the non-believers and the Darwinists and all this kind of, it's just a phony story all cooked up after the fact, okay, to produce this complete psyop against the whole giant story and whatnot. And that's why they're not considering it today. And they're wrong in all their premises about whatever DNA is and all that kind of stuff because they don't know what we're mixed with. Smithsonian gatekeeper Alice Herdliska go over this, and it's also mentioned. He's also mentioned in C.W. Ceram's book, The First American, and Charles C. Mann's, 1491. Right, that this guy was a punk. All right. And then he set back archaeology for God knows how long and perpetuated this whole anti giant story and anti, humans being, North America being inhabited by humans, no longer ago than maybe 4,000 or 5,000 years or something like that. And he stuck to his story until he, was no longer head of the Bureau of Ethnology at the Smithsonian. Okay. Okay, again with W.H. Holmes, who's also a Smithsonian gatekeeper who helped suppress the story of the giants. Okay, and C.W. Ceram talks about American archaeology in his book, The First American. We go over it on his channel in several occurrences that, good archaeology, really good archaeology, was suppressed. Okay, they don't want us to know the real story about the other hominids that occupied North America. There's always this focus on the Native Americans, okay, but what about these people who came before? Not quite as much, except for the Dina and Hopewell, but there seems to be a lot more going on by, the accounts of the giants. Far more going on than we can ever imagine, okay? Ice Age psychopathy, Ice Age bovine feces, the Ice Age theory, that was by Louis Agassiz. The idea of continental glaciation came from Louis Agassiz. The idea, okay, in 1840, it's ancient already. And all they've done ever since is try to prove it, to prop it up. Okay, like so nothing else could possibly have caused all these things. And you can see right here in some of these drawings and illustrations that something happened, okay? As we know from all the impact craters in North America and everything, this place was wiped out. North America was wiped out by something. It had nothing to do with glaciers. It says over here, Agassiz was Swiss, and so he knew glaciers well. Okay, so, if all you got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. But that's not what the story is. Okay, so again, this is a theory that everybody in school learns as a fact, and it's not a fact. Okay, it's just a theory. Okay, because something else would cause it, yes, and people have put it forth, but nobody cares about that. All right, I'm going to stick to this, and one side feeds the other when you have multidisciplinary people involved with these things. All right, it's like reel back. Okay, I go over to the channel here. All right, this is one of these things where they teach these things as some sort of fact, and it's not true. It just simply isn't true. Okay, they show this beautiful building constructed here, supposedly the Mayans built, and it's made of perfectly cut dressed stones, and you have all these crude repairs to it that somebody tried to do to it or whatever, but somehow it didn't morph into this what they call these serpent mouths, all right, which is like clear as day. You can see it's repaired, okay? And this is the same sort of thing as mistakes are made with radiocarbon dating going on this channel. Cornell University said there are serious errors in historical archaeology in the Mideast for several reasons. The dating of wood, for example, which is reused again and again and again. It could be either far older than they date some of these things, but these are newer structures where the thing is repurposed again because there isn't any wood in the desert. And that their radiocarbon dating was off by hundreds of years. And, look, you start with that kind of problem, and somewhere down the road, nothing drives up, nothing is in the right place, all right? And you can see from these Rio back, which are reconstructions. Okay, guys, what's running here? I don't know what's running here. But, whatever it is. But in any case, these are kind of things that go over my channel, okay? So in any case, in this Rio Beck style where they create these serpent mouths, these thick wooden planks are put in here as repairs. It's clear as day. And the Mayans tried reconstructing these things as best they could, made it into these monster mouths, and it morphed from these quite elegant buildings like this into these monster mouth things, okay? And based on the boards that are used in there, they date these sites to where it has nothing to do with it. These are repairs made by Mayan people later on because they couldn't find stone lintels, or they couldn't put up stone lintels similar to the original building there. And all this junk on the top is either carved or found pieces that they put together randomly to create these serpent mouth buildings and whatnot, which are not the original structures. The original structures were these beautiful type apartment buildings, like modern apartment buildings or modern type constructions with finely cut stone, and not the type of mortar and irregular stone repair work that is noted for the Mayans, okay? So it's a civilization before the Mayans there, which was more advanced than these people that you never hear anything about. And this is all throughout the Americas, just all throughout it. And this is just blatantly in your face. I talk about the Texas University professor who pointed these things out, and they like told him to shut up. Okay, so these things were amazing structures built by some other race of peoples who were there, and you can see these things, the repairs that were done by the Mayans, okay, to try to keep these things together, and where you have these large perfectly cut stone on one side, and then you find these repair work on the other side, and it's not even evenly matched. It could be repurposed from another site altogether. This is more like the Mayan stonework right here and in front of it, not this finely cut and dressed stones and these beautiful buildings that were produced by these people in those times. Just amazing stuff. And not these monster mouth buildings. But anyway, guys, just wanted to point out that your argument as to why we should be forgiving them, because we just don't understand that, this language is all hypothetical and they're just taking their best guess, is the same argument they throw in our face, when we question it. If it's hypothetical, well, it's open to scrutiny. So, sorry about that, but that's the truth. And it's open to interpretation by anybody else who wants to school themselves in these things. So, anyway, guys, just keep that in mind even when you're reading articles from ancient origins, which is not a particularly alternative type site. It has some alternative articles that you can see on there, but when it comes to things like this, you can see it's just blatant apologetic type journalism for mainstream, and they deserve the criticism. It's sort of a double-edged sword because you want to hear about what their thoughts are. At the same time, you want to be able to look at these things from your own perspective as well. And if they deserve criticism, then well, that's what they're supposed to get. And that's all there is to it. It's not that you're free of criticism or shouldn't be held responsible. You should, okay? Especially if you're a supposed expert in your field, okay? Anyway, guys, I hope you liked it. Please do hit the like button and please do subscribe if you're not a subscriber. We look at some very interesting things and try to get people to think in different ways on this channel. And, look, this is all part of that. And everything is open to criticism, even these articles on ancient origins and other sites. All right. Anyway, guys, Bugcat7 signing out. A breeze.